See, as I told you in module number 3, we have a 3 chapters. One is the wireless LAN, connecting devices and networking layers. So from each concepts, one question will be appearing. Minimum one questions will be appearing. Okay. So wireless LAN has been taught by me. That is architecture comparison, characteristics, and IEEE 802 architecture, max sub layer I have told, physical layer, and Bluetooth architecture we have discussed. And HOD sir has discussed about hub switches, virtual LAN sir has discussed, and network layering concepts sir has done. Okay, so quickly we will brush up. Within 20 minutes I will try to finish up this. So the fundamental difference between your wired LANs and wireless LAN is that, so as the name suggests, in wired LAN the medium is wire and in wireless the medium is air, and there is no mobility will be there for the devices in the wired LANs, whereas in the case of wireless, since in order to provide a mobility we have created a wireless LAN, so therefore the host will have a mobility. Okay, and these isolated LANs are connected through link layer switches, whereas these isolated LANs are connected through logically, means physically they are not connected but logically they have connected. And connection to other networks is done through routers, whereas connection to other network in the wireless LAN, it will be done through access points. Okay, so this is the difference between your wired LANs and wireless LAN. So you can see how the isolated wired LAN will be looking, and wireless isolated LANs how it is looking. And you can see how we can make a connection, that is a wired LAN, how we can connect it to other external entities. So that is nothing but wired internet. Similarly, in the wireless LAN, what we have used is we have made use of the access point. Through the use of access point, it has been connected to the router, and from router it is being connected to the main internet architecture. Okay, and when we study about this wireless LAN, so as I told you, some important concepts you need to remember. Why? Because these wireless LANs are prone to errors. Why? Because the attenuation will be more, and interference will be more, and multipath propagation will be more. Okay, so therefore you need to make a concentrate on these characteristics of the wireless LAN. Okay, so attenuation, interference, and multipath propagation. Why these plays an important role? Because we don't have a control on the signal which is propagating on the media. So therefore a lot of disturbance and lot of multipath propagations will be there. So therefore you need to involve a robust mechanism for decoding of the information. And the characteristics of the channel we will be representing in terms of SNR values, that is a signal to noise ratio. And for the, if you want to have a good communication means, then the signal to noise interference ratio it has to be high. And if the communication is degrading, or if the communication is not happening properly means, then the medium is exhibiting a low SNR value. So means what, the noise is there when you compare to the desired information. Okay, and why we will be using this wireless LAN? In wireless LAN we will be using a CSMA CA instead of CSMA CD. Why? Because, so since the CSMA CDA, the first thing is it requires more power, and the hidden node problem will be occurred in the wireless LANs. We talked about hidden node problem and exposed nodes problem. So this hidden node problem will be frequently occurring in the wireless LAN. So therefore we cannot use this CSMA CD. And also the distance between one node to another node, it will be generally large when you compare to the wireless LAN. So because of this we cannot able to use the CSMA CD. We can make use of the CSMA CD. And most of the gate questions they have asked you this question. So which access method will be used in a wireless LAN? So the answer is CSMA CD. And we have conducted several quiz, and I have asked you this question also. Okay, so the next one I told you hidden node problem. So you can see hidden node problem. The station B, that is the station A, is an intermediate between station B and station C. So because of station B, it is hidden from station C. So they cannot have a transmission from B to A and also from C to A. So this case we call it as a hidden node state problem. And we can see that in the case number 2, so the C is hidden from B, B. So therefore B assumes that there is no station which is transmitting the data to C. So therefore B and C, if simultaneously transmit the data to them means, then there is a possibility of collision will happen between the mediating nodes. So this problem we call it as a hidden node problem. So in the wireless LAN technology, this hidden node problem is a common problem which we are going to face. So we need to avoid these hidden node problems. So in order to avoid this hidden node problem, we need to come up with some controlling mechanisms, or a controlling signals has to be generated. So we will be using two important controlling signals. One we call it as a RTS signal, and one more we call it as a CTS signal. Yes, can anybody tell me what you mean by RTS and CTS? We have discussed this, right? What do you mean by RTS and CTS?
RTS is sir.
Yes, very good.
CTS is clear.
Yes, very good. What do you mean by ACK or AWK?
ACK acknowledgement, sir.
Yes, very good. Very good, Jyoti. Okay. So now what we do is we go for the wireless LAN technology. So if I ask you what is a wireless standard is there, or what is IEEE standard is there for a wireless LAN technology, or for the wireless LAN means, then you should say that IEEE 802.11. For the wired, we had a IEEE 802.3. Once again, I am telling you, for wired LAN, we had a IEEE standard, that is IEEE 802.3, whereas for the a wireless LAN, we have a IEEE 802.11. So from this project only, the wireless LAN it has been established. So from this, so we have created a two types of architecture. One we call it as a basic service set, and one more we call it as an extended service set. So in the basic service set is nothing but, so this is the primary building block of your wireless LAN technology. Okay, so in this basic service set, what we will be having is, so some 3 to 4 computers, they will only frame a rules and regulations, and they will start coordinating among them, and they create a network. So such a mechanism we call it as a basic service set. So in this basic service set, again there are two categories we can establish. So the one we call it as a ad hoc BSS, and second we call it as a infrastructure BSS. So in the ad hoc BSS, what we will be doing is, there is no any supervisor will be there between the stations. But whereas in the case of infrastructure BSS, we will be having a supervisor, and this supervisor we call it as an access point, or it is also called as a central station. So you can see this is one of the simple example for the ad hoc BSS and the infrastructure BSS. So you can see in ad hoc BSS there is no provision, or there is no inclusion of the access point, whereas in the case of infrastructure BSS there is inclusion of AP is there. So if you want to have a communication between this infrastructure BSS means, then it has to be done through the access point only. Okay, so the second one is extended basic service set. So as the name suggests, what you mean by extended basic service set means, this is very very important question. Okay, so sometimes they may in most of the question paper they have asked you, so what do you mean by BSS and ESS? Explain with diagrams or examples they will be asking you. Okay, so in extended service set, what happens is, it is a combination of two or more BSS with access points connected to the distributed system. So you can see here, two or more BSS are connected to frame a larger network, and that larger network we call it as an extended service set. Okay, and in extended service set, what happens is, so from one network to another network we should have a coordination. So in order to have a coordination, so what we use is, we mainly use the access point to have a coordination between one network, one BSS to another BSS. Okay, so in this extended basic service set, there are two types of stations or nodes we'll be using. So one we call it as a movable stations, and one we call it as a stationary stations. The movable stations are nothing but a mobile station. So generally they will be moving within the BSS entity, and we call it as one more stationary stations. So these are nothing but access points. Okay, so these access points will be fixed, but they will be coordinating the movement of the mobile stations. Okay, so this is how we can create an extended service set. You can see here, the each access points, they are connected to the distributed system, and that from there we have connected to the server or a gateway. So this is one of the example what we call it for the extended service set, basic service set. Okay, and based on the mobility in the wireless LAN, we can have three types of stations. One we call it as a node transmission mobility, second we call it as a BSS transition mobility, and the third one we call it as a ESS transition mobility. So this is based upon the mobility of the wireless LAN. So we can categorize into three different stations. So one we call it as a node transition, BSS transition, and the ESS transition. Okay, so the next one is MAC sublayer. See, this is very very important concept. IEEE 802.11 defines two MAC sublayers. One is called as a distributed coordination function, and second we call it as a point coordination function. See, in distributed coordination function, so it is used in the contention services, whereas point coordination function, it is used for the contention free services. Okay, and this is a explanations which is related to the distribution coordination function. Okay, so it uses the access method of CSMA CA. So you can see here from source to destination, and there are four stations we have considered. So how the mechanisms will be taking place, it has been highlighted in the diagram. So you can see, so before the station wants to transmit the data, it will wait for an amount of time that we call it as a distributed interframe space, and after waiting for DIFS time, it will transmit an RTS packet. So the destination receives an RTS frame, and it will wait for a short interframe space time, and after that it will transmit an RTS packet. So once the RTS packet has been received from the source, it will transmit the data after waiting for an SIFS time. So after receiving the data from the source node, the destination will send an acknowledgement. Okay. So during this, once the data is taking transmission, the remaining stations, so the stations who is going to receive an CTS packet, they will activate that there is no channel is there unless and until this timer has to be elapsed. So that timer details they will be activating in one of the vector that we call it as a network allocation vector. So with the use of this network allocation vector, so once the timer has been expired, then what again, the station C and station D, they will try to search for the whether the channel is free or not. If the channel is free means, then they will go for this DCF method. If channel is not free means, again how much time it is required they will be get to know, and that information will be noted down in the network allocation vector. Okay, so this is the explanation. This is very important concept. The second one we call it as a point coordination function. It works upon the based on the polling. So you can see here in the first part, so access point, it has polled and one station that we call it as a polled station. The other stations you can see here, they have activated their nav vector. That is nothing but, since one station has been already polled, so there is no need for us to access the channel. So therefore they will activate the nav vector and they will keep it in an idle mode. So once the data has been successfully transmitted from one station, again different stations will be polled from the access point, and that station, if the data is there for to transmit, then it will transmit it, or else it will keep it it will be in a idle mode. So this we call it as a polling mechanism. Okay, and the next one is we go for a fragmentation. So why we go for the fragmentation? As I told you, so if the data whatever receiving from the transport layer, if it is large data is there, and whatever the channel you are using or whatever the node, intermediate node you are using, if the capacity of the intermediate node, if it is not possible for us to transmit the entire data simultaneously means, then we use a fragmentation. Okay, after fragmentation we will give a sequence number for each file and we will be transmitting. Okay, so that is why we use a fragmentation. And on what basis you will be creating this fragmented frame is, so this is the frame what we have created using the frame structure. Okay, so there are different means headers are there, addresses are there, and the explanation of all these frame structures has been given in the class. Okay, so these are the subtype fields what we have studied for the frame control mechanism. Okay, so there are two types of frames will be there. One we call it as a management frame, and one we call it as a control frame. So as I told you, control frames are nothing but your RTS and CTS, and even acknowledgement can be called as a control frame. So this is the address mechanism, how we can use it in a IEEE 802. Okay, so these are the four cases how we can create either the station is in distributed or the station is in idle. So with these four cases we can able to identify so how the mechanisms of fragmenting the packet will takes place over the AP and BSS can be seen in this slide. Okay, so one more important concept what I told is, so the exposed terminal problem. So the exposed terminal problem, so you can see here what is this exposed terminal problem is that, See, the station B is transmitting a data to station C. Station B is want to transmit the data to station C, but the thing is, station D also wants to transmit the data to C. Okay, so now what happens is, see here, the station A is transmitting the data to that is the station B is transmitting the data to C, and D also wants to transmit the data to C. Since C cannot transmit, but it can receive from two nodes simultaneously. But since C has activated its nav vector, so because of that, the station D cannot able to transmit. So this mechanism or this type of scenario, we call it as an exposed node problem. So with the use of this exposed node problem, what happens is, as even though there is a capability for the node to transmit the data, because of other stations they have involved in the data communication, so the other stations are not able to do the communication. So such a scenario we call it as a exposed node problem or exposed terminal problem. Okay, so after that what we studied is, we studied about a physical layer. So still now in the physical layer we haven't touched what exactly this physical layer and all. So you can see the physical layer is works upon the ISM band, which we call it as a unlicensed version. So this ISM band, it operates in three different regions. So that is nothing but 902 to 928 megahertz and 2.4 to 4.835 gigahertz and 5.725 to 5.850 gigahertz. Okay, so with this range, this ISM band is works, and these bands are free to operate without any means without any agreements. Okay, and you can see here what are the different types of modulation schemes we can use and what are the techniques they have used in the different forms of the wireless LAN. It has been given in this table. Okay, so the next, the one more important concept what you are, sometimes they will be asking you the questions on this is the Bluetooth. So they will be asking you what you mean by the architecture, what are the different types of architectures which will be seen in the Bluetooth. That is one type of question they may ask you which is related to Bluetooth, and they may ask you explain the Bluetooth protocol stack. Okay, so for the in terms of architecture wise, the Bluetooth is consisting of two methods or the two architecture. One we call it as a Pico network, and second we call it as a second scattering network. So in the Pico network, the maximum of 8 station can do the communication. So among this 8 station, one will be primary and the remaining all are secondary. Okay, so in order to have a establish a communication or in order to have a synchronous between all the stations, so we will be using a clocks to do the synchronization. Okay, so if you want to install more stations rather than only 8 means, yes, it is possible for you to install the stations, but simultaneously only 7 stations will be acting at any instant of time. So such a scenario or such a network we call it as a Pico network. The second one we call it as a scatter network. So second one, it is nothing but it is a two or more combination of Pico network, we call it as a scatter network. So the primary device in one device, it might be secondary device for some network, but it might be and it may be primary devices for the other network. You can see here the Pico network of 1, it is merging with the Pico network of 2 here. So you can see the primary device, it is a Pico net of one network. It is acting like a secondary device in another Pico network. Okay, so this is how we can do create a scatter network. Okay, so the next one is the Bluetooth protocol stack. So as I told you, the explanation which is related to this Bluetooth protocol stack. So it is mainly consisting of L2 cap, baseband layers, radio layers, channel length, and a channel ID and data and control length will be having. Okay, so the associated some functionalities we studied about which is related to L2 cap and the baseband layers we talked about, and how the secondary primary communication takes place within the Bluetooth we talked about. Okay, and this is the multiple secondary communications how we can establish between them we talked.